Everyone goes through stressors in college, whether that be meeting new friends, adjusting to your new environment, or your classwork. And college students need to deal with stress in a healthy manner. We go through so much of it on a daily basis that it's impossible for us to not have a healthy way to cope with these things. And starting college is very stressful for many students. We have a brand new environment where we have to meet new people, a whole bunch of new classes we've never had before, and of course leaving your family and friends that you've had for your entire life back at home. It's also very hard to be completely independent for the first time ever. A lot of us rely heavily on our parents and on our friends and outsider influence as well. So it's hard to come from having people wake you up in the morning to being completely alone and by yourself and independent. And the dropout rates for college are huge. And I think that having the stress management class will help lower these dropout rates. Because so many college students have so much stress, and if they don't know how to deal with it, they might just end up giving up altogether. And I established my credibility by being a student myself and dealing with these stressors, and also knowing a lot of people that are so stressed as well. I also established credibility by having researched so many of these topics. And this class would be fully for stress. It wouldn't be about anything else except for how to healthfully manage your stress. A lot of the times moving away from home can be very stressful for people. And a lot of students don't deal with it well, and they might get even separation anxiety from their family back home. And class stress can be huge because we never had to deal with this workload before, and we're going from a high school criteria to a whole new college criteria, which is way harder. Many people in college establish unhealthy coping mechanisms, such as drugs, partying too much, and maybe not even just going to class. They don't know how to deal with all these stressors because they've never had it before, so they don't know how to be healthy with it. And in the source, Mindfulness in the Classroom, it states that 31.8% of students have experienced stress, which means that is a lot of people having to deal with stress on a daily basis that may not know how to deal with it. And not only is this bad for students' mental health and mental image, it's also bad for their success rates. It's hard to focus on academics when you have so much wrong going on. And a lot of these students have no prior understanding of how to deal with stress. It's never been taught to us before. We may have an idea or two, but we really don't fully know. And the more stress you have, the worse and worse your mental health can get. And dealing with mental illness on top of trying to work together all your classes and deal with other things in college will be much more difficult than anything you've ever faced before. And in the next source, on the role to mindfulness and compassion, skills in students coping well, being, and development across transition to college by Camelia D. It tells us to establish mindfulness and compassion, which will help us with openness, empathy, and self-care, and also the care for others. Because first off, we need to establish a way to care for ourselves to help manage the stress. And in a way, when we care for others, we can help them deal with the stress as well. And then maybe one time somebody will reach out to you to make sure you're okay. And this will establish new ways for us to cope. And it is very important for us to cope with things, and maybe not in the traditional way we knew before. It may offer new ideas of how to deal with the stress we're handling at the moment. And then on the studies of stress management, there's already been a class that has happened, and they have gotten the results from it. And this was in the source randomized control trial evaluating the effectiveness of a web-based stress management program among community college students. by Patricia Fraser. And this looked at the effectiveness of classes. And they were very effective, showing that the kids that took the classes had a lower stress level. So this class helped them manage their stress and do much better in their studies. And this will ward away, having this class will ward away the unhealthy coping mechanisms maybe we knew in our past and develop them into what we now have. And better mental health means better success for all students. While they're not managing their mental issues and their mental illness, they can deal more with academic studies and the betterment of themselves for the future. And it can open new pathways of self-care, because once they learn it, they'll establish it through the rest of their life. So no matter if they're in college or if they're in their future jobs, they'll still be able to handle the stress correctly. And it will help students achieve greatness in their studies. These students that may have dropped out if they didn't have this class will now be succeeding. And thank you very much. That's why I think the stress management class would be so important.